Good evening, children. Today we'll discuss a new lesson, that is the ocean and seas. Now, we have learned in previous classes about lithosphere, atmosphere, biosphere, and in fact, even hydrosphere. So, this chapter is all about hydrosphere. Now, we all know that about 71% of the Earth's surface is covered with water, and that only 29% of the Earth is covered with land. Now, because large amount of water is on this Earth's surface, so when we see the Earth from the space, it looks blue, and that is why the Earth is also known as the blue planet. Now, if you take into account the entire water of the Earth, say 100%, then out of the 100%, 97% of water is found in sea and ocean, and the remaining 3% and the remaining 3% are found in rivers, lakes, pond, or in the glaciers. Now, despite so much of water in the sea and oceans, but it cannot be utilized by man for agricultural or domestic purpose. And the reason is because the ocean and sea water are saline, that it contains plenty of salt. Now, altogether on this earth, we have 5 oceans, and they are the Pacific Ocean, the Atlantic Ocean, the Indian Ocean, the Northern Ocean, also known as the Arctic Ocean, and the Southern Ocean, that is the Antarctic Ocean. Now, apart from the ocean, we have other water bodies that are a part of oceans, like sea, bay, gulf. Now, these are also a part of ocean. Now, what are seas? Well, seas are actually a part of the ocean, but they are near to the land or continents. Then, what are bays? Now, bays are also a part of the ocean that is being surrounded by land on 3 sides, and that has a wide curve of the shore. And gulf, same thing. Gulf is also a part of the ocean that has a narrow entrance to it. Now, the similarity or the similarities among all these water bodies are that they are saline, that is, the water of all these water bodies, sea, bays, and ocean, are saline. And secondly, there is no visual boundary among seas, bay, and ocean. So these are the similarities. And among all the oceans, the Atlantic Ocean is the saltiest ocean. Now, if you go back, say about 4.5 billion years ago, that was when the Earth was in its initial stage, and that is, the Earth was in gaseous state. The first stage of the Earth was in gases. Then slowly, the gas condensed, and then it transformed into liquid, and then from liquid it changed into solid, that is the crust. Now, on this earth, we have the high and the low features, that is the highland and the lowland. So, not exactly lowland, but the lower part of the earth and the higher part of the earth are formed or are result of the contraction of the earth. So, the land that remain comparatively higher, they became plain or mountain or plateau, and the lowland or the low features got filled with water and they became oceans. So the high and low feature of the earth was formed because of the contraction of the earth. And that's how seas and oceans were formed. Now the next that we'll discuss is about ocean currents. Now we know that oceans are very large and in fact deep, but the water in the ocean is not stable, and there are some reasons behind the movement of the ocean water from one direction to another. Now, what exactly is ocean current? So, ocean current is a continuous movement of ocean water due to various forces acting upon water. And those forces are such as wind, temperature, salinity of water, and rotation of the earth. So, what are the reasons for the ocean current? So, the reason or the factors of the ocean current are rotation of the earth, wind, temperature, and salinity of the water. Now, let's see how temperature acts as a helps in ocean current. Now, we know that in the equatorial region, the sun rays fall directly, that is perpendicularly. So as a result, the water in the equatorial region gets heated up and they expand towards both north and south of the equator. Same thing, the water in the cold region, that is north and the south pole, they are quite more dense. Cold water is quite dense, so they sink down and they travel towards the equator from both the side. That's how ocean current generates. Then secondly, the direction of the wind also creates ocean current. The next, salinity of the water also creates ocean current, like cold water. So cold water is highly saline and warm water is less saline. So what happens here is that cold water that is highly saline is dense. We all know that cold water that is highly saline is dense, and so since it is dense, it sinks down. So when the cold water that is highly saline sinks down, so it forces or it pushes the water from the below to the surface, and this sinking of water and pushing of water upwards also creates ocean current. The next is wind. Now wind also helps to generate ocean currents. Now strong wind move across the water surface, and that wind has a friction or causes friction and generates ocean currents. So these are some reasons or factors that generates ocean current. Now we know that the warm current moves from the tropical region or the equatorial region towards the polar region, and the cold current from the polar region moves towards the equator or towards the tropical region. Now what happens when the cold current and the warm current, when they come from two different directions, they meet at a place, and the place where they meet, such places actually becomes shallow. Now why? Because the cold current that flows from the polar region, they also bring along with them huge icebergs, and when these cold current gets mixed with the warm current, the iceberg starts to melt, and inside the iceberg it that contains a lot of pebbles, sediments, or stones. So when they melt, the particles or the debris inside the iceberg, they also come out and gets deposited in the place where the warm and the cold current meets. So such places becomes shallow, and also such places are also full with planktons. Now planktons are small organisms that are found in the oceans, and the planktons are very suitable for fishes, and that's why these places where the cold and the warm current come and meet, such places are considered as the best fishing ground. For example, the sea around Japan and the east coast of North America are important fishing grounds. And sometimes in these places, dense fogs are also and heavy storms are also seen where the warm and the cold current meet, and which can also greatly affect the movement of ships in these areas. So in this chapter, now in the activity we have is that why does ocean water of equatorial region gets heated quickly? So the answer is the water of the equatorial region gets heated quickly or easily because the sunlight here falls perpendicularly or directly. Then the second activity, the meeting point of two different streams of different temperature gradually becomes shallow. Explain. I have just explained, but the question and answer I will give you later in the WhatsApp. So that's all for today. The next, sea waves, tides, plants and animals, and fishing, water transport, all this we'll discuss in the next class.